yes, we still do this show, believe it or not. Well, at least I do. Kate is not here. She had a schedule conflict that prevented her from joining us today. So it is me. I might forget the name of the show midway through, but please bear with me. We are joined today by our newest member of the Stadium Scene Network. It is Trevor, Everette, and Josh Gupton of the Two Pointers podcast. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, man. It's a lot of fun. We appreciate Evan, first of all, Evan Birchmore for
Evan,
the recommendation. So
we were going to mention that later on, but yes, Evan of Bring the Sting. Evan's been partnered with us. I've been trying to get him to come on here for a while, and I keep sending him messages. And I see on Instagram he sees it and then doesn't reply. So I don't know what the deal is with that. So Evan, we want you on the show. We've been trying to get you on for a while. Please join us. So, all right. Before we get too far into this, I want to make a quick housekeeping. This is actually the first time we are streaming this We're not live, guys, by the way, but we will be streaming this episode on Twitch, on YouTube as a live event. Yeah. We pre-recorded this, but we're trying something a little bit different, taking advantage of the streaming. We're doing some testing of some new things we're playing around with around here. So this is the first time we're actually debuting this as a live streamed episode. So if this is your first time watching the show, welcome. Thank you for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, whether you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, or comment in the chat live. I'm here watching the chat real time, so I will comment back and forth. And be sure to tune in later tonight, 10:15 p.m. Eastern for Wednesday Night Dash. We are hitting the road course for the first time this season at Mid-Ohio in the ARCA cars. It's going to be a mess. Don't miss it. So, gentlemen, back to the show here. How did the two of you meet, and why did you start a podcast together?
Trevor, I'm interested in how you recall, like when you recall we first met, because I have a very distinct memory. The first meeting you.
So I thought I was actually going to say the same thing. I don't have a distinct memory, but I remember vaguely of a time period, and I was hoping you would be the one that would just lead us right in, because I think I remember you telling me this story. So go right ahead. I'd love to hear this. Again,
we were in 5th grade, so I guess we'll call it 11 years old. We met when we grew up in the same town, have been friends for a long time. And the first interaction I ever had with Trevor was him telling me to go screw myself because I was a UNC basketball fan instead of an NC State basketball fan like he was.
Yes!
11-year-old Trevor told me to go screw myself for being a UNC fan.
24-year-old Trevor still
that's
does
my
that.
distinct first interaction I can remember.
Did he actually say go screw yourself, or did
he said screw you was the exact?
Okay, all right,
yeah.
Okay.
Not as bad, but
if it would have been 11-year-old and you were just censoring go F yourself, now that would have been really funny. I mean, that is pretty damn funny.
He didn't say that one.
That is pretty damn funny, but that would have been even funnier.
To be fair, 24-year-old Trevor still does that only when they play each other. not in any random context, but he still does that if they lose by 30 in Chapel Hill. But yeah. And I should have appropriately worn some kind of state gear if I'd known that was coming. I definitely forgot all about that story.
I didn't think about that until recently, but I was like, well, that is kind of a funny story for the exact first moment I interacted with you.
I would say I'm drawing a blank on some of the best how did you meet stories, but that easily is going into the top 3. I don't care what else. Fantastic. I mean, we've had some good ones, but this easily goes into the top 3.
Yeah, I have nothing to comment on. I vaguely remember last week. It's just a matter of he's remembering 11-year-old. Good. Like, I believe him. I trust him that's right. It's got to be. Like, I honestly...
It was a distinct memory. I mean,
yeah, it's
you don't
true.
Forget stuff like that. Someone you've never talked to before.
So clearly you got past the initial negative first impression. So where did the podcast
We didn't really become friends till 3 years later, but...
Yeah, it took a little while. But no, we're here. We started a podcast in December of 2021, so I guess 2 years is coming up, or December of 2020, excuse me. Thank you, yeah. December. I keep forgetting my years now. These are flying by.
It's all blur.
It's long-term, obviously, I have had this aspiration for a while and didn't pursue it in the proper manner, but I've always wanted to be in sports media in some form or fashion, and it was a path that I personally did not take the proper path on early on. I guess proper is not the right word, but everyone's path's different, but I really enjoyed the idea. All jokes aside, to some of our friends that might listen to this, I was like, who's going to take it the most serious was my thought process. And here we are, from 11-year-old us to now talking about this, and almost 2 years later, episode 100 is coming up in a few weeks.
Yes,
why we started.
It's awesome.
We both really enjoy basketball. At least I can speak for myself on that. It is like if I had to pick one thing in my life to just be absolutely a nerd about, it's basketball of every kind and every level. The NBA specifically, really in college, but it's just something I've always wanted to talk about and just see if people cared. And I think Josh can agree with me on this. Just it's shocking how many people do care this short amount of time per perspective into it, where it just kind of gave us that perspective of why we were like, well, we care and people want to hear it. So it just kind of was like we were already serious about it enough, and we kept going with it. So
Yeah, I remember you bringing it. I think you brought it up to our group of friends when we were hanging out at one time, and I think most of them didn't take you very seriously with the idea initially, and I might have been the only person that really like was like, no, I think I can see it. Like I realized like you were actually serious about it, and I liked the idea going into it, and thought we could make something cool. And it's been cool to see response from people so far, and it's honestly just a fun thing that we can create every week, and it's definitely drawn us closer since we don't live near each other really that much anymore. He lives closer to Raleigh. I live up in Winston-Salem now, so yeah, been a cool
It's not
connect.
that far away, but yeah,
No, but it's
yeah,
like I can see him every few months. It's not like
yeah, sure,
you can see your friend regularly. Yeah.
I do
yeah.
want to be on record about something really quick though. There are a lot of people in sports media that have a timeline of when podcasting kind of quote blew up. I'd like to think my timeline is it's like end of 2021 or middle 2021. People realized as the pandemic started opening back up, people were starting to be less bored, or when they were bored, they were talking about stuff online, and it kind of. I think we just barely got ahead of the curve.
Yes.
I always when people always used to joke about
So-
that. It's like, oh, yeah, everyone has a podcast now, and it's like not everyone's podcast is in the top, and you can throw up statistics, whatever, and you can be happy about that. But I'd like to think that we got in for the right reason at the right time, and then it just, I mean, I'll never forget the first episode got 121 downloads in like a span of 9 days.
I mean,
And
I was lucky.
I just don't like, I can thank
You-
Spotify for that, but like,
are
I just don't understand.
You right there are the exception to the rule.
Right.
That does not happen.
That's what
Yeah,
I
that
said.
was- Well,
It's well, I mean, and I was actually going to ask you about that too, because you got started in December of 2020. I mean, when we've been doing this since I guess this format since 2017. Jeez, God, 5+ years, almost 6 now. And when March 2020 hit, and everybody went home, and there was no live sports on TV, we just had this massive influx of podcasts. And probably 99% of them shut down in the first 6 months. People started leaving again. You're out. So, this is a two-parter. One is, why did it take till December to get you guys going when everybody else was jumping in March, April? And how did you keep it going when everybody else was shutting down and returning to normal life? Was it because it was a way to keep you guys in regular contact? Was there something else there?
yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think like with my job, I had returned back kind of to the in-person work, in like August of 2020, and so I don't really know as much about kind of like the getting back. I don't know if really to be honest, if the pandemic affected us that much in that it like the timing was affected because we came up with the idea somewhere in the NBA offseason that year. Everything had been delayed. They went into the bubble. And it hits the off season, and then it was like around Christmas when the NBA got started, and that kind of just rocketed up from the point where okay, we've had this idea, we're gonna start here at the start of the season.
So the NBA part of it, I echo the testament. For me personally, it was the idea around that vision of like, okay, sports media is possible, and I had this complacentness with my job where I worked in a job where the pandemic basically killed it. I was still employed. I was one of only 10 people
wow.
on a team of 48, and
man.
38 of them got either let go or sabbaticaled or whatever the word I'm missing right now is, where you basically get sent away for as many months. Furloughed, thank you. I never did it, so I don't know the word. So I was very fortunate to say I was one of only 10 people, and I basically had all this time on my hands, and like the lack of sports, just I guess the lack of basketball specifically, really, but the lack of sports in general, like ate me up in general, and I realized that it was something that I wanted to just like. I wanted to talk about it. It was like the itchingness of just like getting back whenever he mentioned the Christmas. I mean, I remember episode 1 went out and it was like a week after the season had actually started. So you can go back to that one. I'm not proud of it. It's so early in the cycle, but we talked about the 2 opening night games, and then all of a sudden we're like, and by the way, here's the preview without any knowledge of what just happened before, whatever. But it was one of those things where you go, okay, this is really, really neat. And at the end of the day, we enjoyed it, or I could say I enjoyed it. And it's just one of those things I had no reason not to do it at that point.
And you put out a good point on these first episodes. It is very common for people to have this mentality. It's like, oh, I'm sitting down with my best friend. We talk all the time together. This will be just natural. And it's not. The way you communicate in a podcast or in a visual medium like this is not the same. My other show that I do, I've been friends since the first day of fourth grade with my partner. We talk all the time. It took a few episodes to get that down. A lot of people, it takes, they say on average, it takes about 50 episodes to build that rapport with your partners. Mm-hmm. And nobody's listening in those first 50 episodes either. Typically, somehow you guys got a big surge episode 1.
It was just episode 1, didn't happen.
Okay. Well, yeah. They didn't come back.
Kind of.
But yeah, it's the mentality is with these podcasts, and for people listening, and you're thinking about starting this, is episode 1's gonna suck. I'm ashamed of episode 1 of every podcast I've done and been a part of. Episode 2's gonna suck, just slightly less and slightly less. And it's like, and nobody's listening. So spend that time when no one's listening, building that rapport, getting your style down. And by the time you get to episode, say 20, 25, maybe 50, listeners will slowly start to roll in. You got something. And then they're like, okay, this, the people are like, okay, this isn't half bad. I'll stick around. And that's kind of the best thing to hope for.
So, Josh, I'm assuming you were going to say this next. If not, I'll say it. So, the actual first episode of ours has been since deleted, and it will never be released to the public because we were like, we'll sit down and we'll preview the East and the West. We actually recorded it 2 weeks before the season started. We had plenty of research, spent all of November ready for it. I think it was like December 10th-ish, and I was learning how to audio edit. I was like, we'll get it out. Well, no big deal. It'll be out by December 25th around the season start, right? And we sat down, and 2 hours and 28 minutes later, that's never seen the light of day. We realized that we just made a movie talking, so we were like, nah, let's just kill that. It is somewhere in a cloud that no one can access. I have no idea where it is.
Pilot
I deleted
number
it. It's gone.
2.
Yes, yeah. And that was basically where. And pilot number 2, I do feel like I all jokes aside, you're using at the time I was using like an Xbox mic or whatever, and using our computers and whatever, but at the time it did feel. It felt better than at least the one before it. So I guess
realized that 2.5 hours was a little much for friends and family to commit to for children.
Yeah. I mean, there's only, I can count on one hand how many podcasters can get away with an episode that long, and we're not on that list.
I don't think we've ever. We've made sure to keep everything below 2 hours. We've definitely had some ones with more to talk about creep into the hour and a half that anyone listens to ours, but those are usually like big, like NCAA tournament bracket previews where we're going through the whole thing, or like a Eastern or Western Conference season preview for the NBA.
Yeah, like hypothetically, the Eastern Conference preview we're recording about 20 minutes from now.
Oh, wow.
That thing. That'll take a little while.
I keep forgetting the season's coming up very soon here. It's just, there's been so many distractions.
A month from 2 days ago.
Yes. There's so many distractions this off season which we were talking about, between Kevin Durant and Robert Sarver, and I'm sure there's other things I'm forgetting about, but those are the two big stories of the summer. And it's like, oh yeah, preseason games start like pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, we've started getting into question 2 before I even asked the question, and we talked about what do you hear on your show, but I wanted to ask you too about that. You do episodes where you bring in and do trivia. Tell me a little bit about that.
You're right ahead, Josh. You're the champion twice, so you deserve it. You deserve to have this question.
The idea originally came from, we wanted something fun to do in addition to, it's kind of like our during the NBA season episode format of, we try to kind of cover big stories from the week and go over our analysis of it, or either a serious or unserious take. And then we started pretty early on doing this trivia game with each other, where we would find a trivia question related to something happening in the week, and one of us would challenge the other with it to close the episodes. When we got to this off season, we wanted something to do kind of to fill the off season. There's kind of that dead period once free agency kind of winds down, where there's not a lot happening in basketball. I mean, we got into like the TBT a little bit and some of the other things, but it's just kind of a dead basketball period. And we realized we'd made a lot of friends like in the basketball sphere, and we were like, what if instead of just doing it with each other, we kind of scheduled some people to come on, and we'll make this fun, weird, kind of funny trivia quiz, and we'll kind of have these guys compete against each other. And it became just a really fun thing that we got into, and we got some funny and fun episodes with different guys, and it's also helped us to kind of connect and network around different podcasts around NBA and college basketball.
Yeah, looking back at it now, I've got our database pulled up for a little bit, and I don't know if this is true or not. I tried my best in the beginning. I had read everything about how to make the clickbait titles, and I tried my best to do that. Um, the very first one that supposedly has trivia in the title, and I believe this might be correct, is February 25th of 2021. So very quickly after we started, only
Like
a few
2 months
weeks.
in, yeah.
Yeah, so understanding what we had with it was okay. People like trivia; it's interesting. You have to make it fun, whatever. It was the third most downloaded episode the first year. That first one. So it's
I
just like
think we've yeah.
understanding that it was people like it. I mean, like people wanted to hear that kind of
Yeah.
thing, and I was very happy to
People
see
love
that.
trivia. I mean,
You
that's
had to
We've
why
do
also
that.
yeah.
I do an Instagram trivia question every Monday morning, and
I'm like 0 for
it's
7 on that, by the way. I haven't gotten one right in like six 7 weeks,
I
just for what it's worth.
I did a question back during the NBA playoffs last year, and I'm still not 100% sure I had the correct answer.
Okay.
And I said there was like, eight, I can't remember, there's like 8 teams left or something like that in the playoffs. And I said, of the remaining 8 teams, how many total NBA championships, not ABA, nothing like that, just NBA championships have the remaining 8 teams won? I went through and I counted it out at least 2 dozen times to make sure I had the right number. And I mean, it was something absurd. It was like 23 or something between the teams. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly. And I'm like, this is right. This is right. And then I posted, I'm like, that can't be right. And then I went back and checked it again. And I checked it again. And it's right. And it's just like one day I'm going to go back and realize I made a mistake somewhere, but I think it's right. I hope it's right. I'm just waiting for the day where I botch a question, where I put the wrong answer in, and then somebody's like, "Hey, that's not the right answer." I'm like,
It's
happened to
we've
us
had that happen on our podcast. Yeah,
many a times.
we've had someone challenge us in the moment about whether or
And
not our answer was correct.
Yeah, and the social media humiliation. I'm like, it's kind of my motivation to like do this right. Is I don't want somebody like, no, that's not right, you idiot. And that's part of the reason too. I people are sick of seeing my face every Monday morning. Let's see someone else's face. But throw some questions in, people. Let's get you on there. So,
Yep.
there's a plug for the Monday morning trivia. So
what was today's question?
I get forget it's Monday.
I don't remember. Today's question, or this week's question, which the answer will be posted tomorrow, is smart,
By the way.
That's right.
So smart.
So the WNBA finals ended on Sunday with the Las Vegas Aces. So including the Las Vegas Aces, how many different WNBA franchises have won a WNBA title? I'm not giving the answer here today because the answer will be posted tomorrow. I'm not giving you
that's right.
Yeah.
I'll throw it out there. I haven't even seen the multiple choice on Instagram yet. I'll throw it out there. I think it's 4 or 5. I feel like I've seen this in the last few weeks. I think
it's
it might
more
be
than
4
10.
or 5. Okay.
There are,
Never mind.
Well, I mean, you also have to remember too, the WNBA has been around for 25 seasons.
Are in the WNBA right now? Is it 12?
Well, that also too. Some of the teams that have won are no longer in existence too.
Well, yeah, that was my guess. I'm gonna guess like 14.
I'll tell you
I'm gonna say it's more than there are teams currently in the WNBA.
It's between 10 and 15, and 14 was not one of the answer choices. Okay. But so
you're
right in the
fun. Yeah. I'm not going to pretend to have a great WNBA history.
A lot of people
knowledge.
And
better than my answer of 4, just to be fair. Better than my answer of
4. I'll give you this right now. The Houston Comets, which I'm kind of ashamed to admit this. I don't even know if they're even still a team or not.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But
they're not. But did they change the name like the Aces did?
Right.
There are a lot of teams that just moved.
Right. Yeah.
To different
and
places.
Detroit moved to like Tulsa, and then I think they moved to Dallas. But the Houston Comets won like the first 3 WNBA championships, and they've won 4 overall themselves. So, there's some teams in there. Apparently there was a team called the Charlotte Sting that played in the final but lost, and I honestly. Like, again, my WNBA.
I'm looking at it
watch
right
is-
now. Dope logo by the Sting. Yeah, the Comets won the first 4 titles. Holy crap.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was pretty, and then you used to have
Wow.
like the LA Sparks and New York Liberty,
Mhm.
Phoenix Mercury have won multiple titles. Uh, yeah, it's
Whatever the team in Seattle is,
Seattle,
Storm.
the Storm.
Storm.
Yep.
Yeah, because they have Brianna Stewart, I want to say,
Yeah.
Well,
plays for the Seattle Storm.
well, and up until recently they had Sue Bird.
Yeah.
I know.
Just retired. Yeah.
Shout out
Yeah.
to Lisa Leslie though, for real.
Lisa
Anyway,
And
that's a
Phoenix
throwback for you.
had Diana Taurasi for many years. It just,
The Lynx have won titles. That's another one. Minnesota
Yep.
Lynx.
Yep. So
With,
we're gonna
Maya
figure
Moore.
the answer. Yeah, you guys are gonna talk the answer out, but we're cutting that off. I don't want to ruin it for tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll close that tab. We're good.
So, what's a piece of advice you'd share to a rookie podcaster?
Stick with it.
I
When
knew
it
you were gonna
doesn't
say
go
it.
well the first year, just keep going.
I feel like that's open-handed or backhanded advice from us though, because it went pretty well the first year.
I mean, not as
Kind
well
of,
as it's gone
kind
the
of.
second time. I remember
That's
when
true.
we started,
True.
I told you it's like what we have to tell ourselves at the beginning is we need to go 2 full years before we sit back and look at this and say, do we see growth? Is this going well? Because it kind of takes a lot of time to catch on. And I mean, I think like we've looked at it now and we're like, okay, we see growth. We think this is going well. But I was like, we've got to just take a lot of time to understand what like our podcast voice is, what we're trying to do here, what people want to hear from us, and to get good at it. I think we'll like a year from now, I'll look back and say, man, we weren't very good at it then because we'll be better at that point. But
Of course. Yeah.
just like if you're going to do it, just do it for a significant period of time and see what you get.
Fair enough. That's number one reason why people give up is because they feel it's not going well, either because schedule, commitment from partners, or they just feel they're not getting the listenership. It's like, not everybody can be a, controversial topic aside, a Joe Rogan in the podcast world. And you're definitely not going to be a Joe Rogan without name recognition. And year one, I mean, that's just not going to happen. So you got to temper your expectations for sure. And that's difficult to do. And it's like, you see how so many people come out there and at times seem like they've become overnight success stories in the podcasting world. For every one of those, there's millions who do not. So
It's also
good advice.
It's also the double-edged sword of understanding that there are people that have other things that they do very well, and they have a lot of followers from that, and then they'll do a podcast because it's the cool thing to do. And not that used to quote bother me, but it doesn't anymore because it's just the thing to do as part of a repertoire of things to do.
Yeah,
I'm glad you asked this question though, because someone asked me this in person, somebody I know outside of my normal friend group, and I was talking to them, and they asked me this question because they were thinking about starting one, and I'm never going to say someone shouldn't start one. But I think Josh alluded to the mindset thing earlier, like looking back at 2 years. And I don't ever want to be the cliche, but that was literally our answer. We did a written interview a few years ago, or a year ago, and we basically, our answer was perseverance to like whatever that was. And it was like, but that's the truth. Like, that's really what it is. My biggest thing on the side of like knowing how to grow things, and this is the advice I would give to anybody who ever asks me this or ask us this, would be like, spend hours researching, like understand what you're getting yourself into. I used GarageBand and iMovie for so many years and months at this point now, understanding how like that post-production wasn't great for the longest time, but I knew it had to be out there and it had to be something that I felt good about. And then I could grow from there. I could be like, hey, Josh, this is what we're doing with this TikTok thing that has really changed our growth. Hey, by the way, YouTube, whatever, right? We've been posting YouTube since May 25th. And we've almost done the same amount of views as downloads in the same amount of time we've had the show. So, like, understand what you're getting yourself into. Make friends and ask them questions. Like, genuinely, like, we've met some really good people in this space. And then just in general, like, some of the people I know that have nothing to do with our show, shout out to our website editor, Jacob, who takes care of everything. Unbelievable on the back end. Like, I don't have to do anything but send him a text. Hey, this is something that came up, or this is something we need done. Like, and he's been really, really helpful in that process. So stuff like that, like ask people, make good friends, understand what you're getting yourself into, and then really, like Josh said, care about it.
It's so hard when you're the web developer, you're the social media specialist, you're the host, you're the producer, you're the guest booker, you're the the hype man, you're the marketing person, you're the webmaster. It's just like, this is my one of many hats that I do. And then with everything and trying to run a network. And then I take on, I'm like, oh, hey, look at this. I've got into sim racing now. Here's my racing wheel kit. And I'm taking that on. And then, oh, by the way, I started a podcast about sim racing. Just like, what am I doing to myself? And I wouldn't have it any other way. My wife might disagree sometimes, but
Mine too.
well,
Mine too.
I'm so deep involved with what I'm doing, and I realized the only way I can keep her support is if I get her involved too. And she has a marketing background, and
nice.
she was actually critiquing our social media posts this morning. Like, you know what? I think you used the wrong hashtags there. You should have used this. And I'm just
I like it.
I'm like, hey, where were you yesterday when I was prepping this?
Hey, I've asked mine to come on. She's going to listen to this. I've asked mine to come on for many, many months about at least just like, hey, here, can you name me 12 NBA players if I hold your picture up or something like of that nature? Just see what you can do. Or give me your take on this game we watched last night together that you didn't want to watch instead of The Bachelorette. Like, whatever.
I would watch the heck out of that.
Right. I keep telling her that. She's going to listen to this. Honey, I love you. But, like, it, I don't know. Whatever. I tried, and I'll try again eventually. But
it's spousal support is so important in this. And if you don't, like, every Wednesday night we run our racing league right before my kids go to bed. And my wife, primary caregiver during the day while I'm working. And then all of a sudden on Wednesday nights, I'm disappearing for an hour before the kids go to bed to go drive, video game race cars essentially. And you know what? And she'd probably want to punch me in the face half the time, but hey, again, get the spouse involved. So there's your other piece of advice. So got to wrap this up. Again, this is not going to be anywhere close to 10 minutes. It never is. Where do we find your show? Where do we find your social media?
Josh, you want me to just do it like I normally do?
Yep, you have it also.
The routine. All right. We got the routine.
Yeah, we have a routine every week. I'm like, all right, hey, I forgot to do this earlier, yada, yada, yada. Here it is, right? But it'll always be linked to the bottom of our stuff. But unfortunately, for the sake of somebody owning a lot of our hashtags when we first started, it's kind of sporadic, so I'll go through them. Twitter's at 2 Pointers. Facebook is the full 2 Pointers podcast, as well as Instagram. TikTok is 2 Pointers, and then YouTube is the 2 Pointers podcast. So all of our stuff there. Websites, the full name as well. Just a really, really great place. A lot of written content coming up, as well as, honestly, if anybody's hearing this and they don't realize that the NBA season's in 4 weeks, even though we've said it multiple times, it's just, this is the stretch that we really enjoy the most. Yeah, right. And this is the stretch of the season that we really enjoy the most, for the most. Like, there's a couple parts, I'm sure, like March Madness, obviously, but this is where really we get to not necessarily deep dive, because that'll take 3 hours, but like we get to really go through all these teams and understand what we're getting ourselves into for the next 82 games. So this is some of the best stretch of content that we typically put out, and we really enjoy this. So awesome. Looking forward to doing that.
Trevor, Josh, thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.
Always fun. I miss doing these. These are just such a fun part. Part of the reason we stopped is, we had people coming to us like, yeah, get me queued up. And then, all right, schedules. And, I got to move. I'm not going to be home in time zones. And it just got so stressful. And I said, fine, we're stopping the show. If somebody wants to be on the show, they can come to us. And you guys did. You came and talked to us. And I said, oh, by the way, open invitation. And you're like, all right, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes. But yes, these are so much fun to make and produce. And you always I met so many great people from not only in the US, Canada, we've had people on from the UK, we've had people on from Australia. It's a lot. There's so much bad in the world and on the internet, but like we found so much good in the process of this too. So again, thank you for partnering up with us. Thank you for being a part of this family, and continued success to the both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
So wrapping that up, stadiumscene.tv, at Stadium Scene on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Twitch, YouTube, at Stadium_Scene on Instagram, because I'm still trying to get that at Stadium Scene on Instagram away from an account hasn't posted in 7 years now. Tune into Wednesday Night Dash tonight, 10:15 p.m. Eastern time. We are at Mid-Ohio. ARCA cars on a road course. It's going to be a mess, so tune in for that. Don't miss it. I'll probably finish in last. And we'll see you next time, whenever that may be.